Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I'm your host, Frank Agin, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Today, thanks for tuning in. Let me just start out by saying that. I almost forgot to say that. I'm kind of really focused in on the topic today, and you'll understand why. We're going to talk about the fear of trusting. Pistanthrophobia, and I will spell that for you out there so you can check me on this. It's Pistanthrophobia, the fear of trusting others. And it's one of the many phobias out there. People have phobias of spiders. They have public speaking, and lots of stuff in between. I stumbled on an article in Psychology Today, the May-June article of Psychology Today, by Ellen Hendrickson, PhD. And she goes through in the article and she talks about fear of trusting, and what I want to explain with respect to Psychology Today is the topics a lot of times really kind of cover the gamut. I mean, there are people who are stuck at home because they have this fear of trusting, this Pistanthrophobia. It's a mouthful. Pistanthrophobia. And so that's certainly probably the most extreme cases of it. And I'm not really going to dwell on this. This is not a mental health podcast for the most part. I mean, some of these things touch on things related to mental health, but people have fear of trusting others in all sorts of situations, whatever it might be. I had an email the other day from one of my contacts who was kind of lamenting to me that people weren't getting back to her. She would reach out to people and they would schedule a call and they might reschedule the call and then be late on the call and then have to cut the call short because they were late to begin with. Maybe not cut it short, but shorten the whole call because the call was supposed to go 30 minutes and because they were 10 minutes late, they only got 20 minutes. And I got the sense from her that she was really kind of mistrusting of people in general. And obviously we have trust issues with people specifically. You might have a loved one, a spouse who betrays you, and then you have trust issues with that particular person, but might not have trust issues with other people in particular, or generally, I should say. So that was something recently that had happened. Same person kind of shared with me issues with respect to people committing to get back to her. They're exchanging texts. The person says, "Hey, I'll do this," and then they end up not doing this, and that kind of leaves her in a quandary. How many times do you follow up with people? And I can see kind of where her head is going. She was reaching out to me, so what do you do in these situations? And the reality is that there's really not a lot you can do. You can't control what other people do. You can only control your reaction to it. Now, you certainly can let them know your displeasure or your feelings on it, that you've let me down, and certainly do that in a polite manner. But I got the sense from her email that she had a growing sense of mistrust relative to contacts she was being given. I can see in situations that there are people out there who have a growing mistrust of networking events. I don't want to go to a networking event. They're all just a waste of time. There's people just pushing cards in your face, and that is certainly a mistrust as well. A lot of times those things stem from isolated situations. For example, if you walked into a networking event and somebody came up to you and had a quick conversation and bought right on the spot, your perception of networking events would be totally different than if you walked into a networking event and somebody came up to you and they really pushed you hard on their product or dominated your time, or whatever it might be. You have different perceptions of it, just based on your experience. Certainly, the first experience would be very telling, or have a big influence on your thoughts on networking events. But people develop a mistrust around these sorts of things. So we do develop mistrust. And what this article goes through is talks about how to kind of get over these trusting issues that you might have. Um, and so Dr. Ellen Hendrickson, I assume she goes by doctor, she's got a PhD. She really kind of provides 6 things that people can grapple with or use to reestablish trust. And again, this is more generally speaking about mistrust of just being out with people, interacting with people and networking. And again, not a phobia to the extent that you're not leaving your house or not getting on LinkedIn, not talking to anybody, but really kind of having in the back of your mind that the expectation that these things aren't going to work out. I don't know why I'm doing this. This isn't going to work out. These network events, they're always bad. And those go to the heart of trust as far as I'm concerned. And so what she does is she kind of gives 6 things that can help people build trust. And the first thing she talks about is, kind of get grounded in a routine. Get grounded in a routine, what you're doing. And again, when they're working with people with severe phobias, that's part of what they'll do is they'll kind of get them into these routines. Whatever that is. And it might be, okay, I'm going to be reconnecting with people, referring back to the person who reached out to me. I'm going to get back out there, and I'm going to set up 10 calls. I'm going to follow up with so many people. I'm basically going to continue doing what I was doing, trying to create these relationships, and really kind of get into a routine about it. It's not going to consume my entire day. From 9 a.m. till 11 o'clock on Monday morning, I'm going to really get into this. And I'm going to, that's my routine. And the rest of the week, I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to commiserate over it. But from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock on Monday morning, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to just going to get in the habit of reaching out to people and trying to set up these calls. And that's the first thing, kind of getting grounded in a routine. The second thing to talk about is to kind of wade back in. The header for the article is give a little and see what comes back, give a little trust. So through the networking event, if you really have a phobia, not a phobia, but if you're really uncertain, don't have a good feeling about networking events, maybe just go and, I'm going to go, I'm going to stand by the coffee. I'm going to have a bagel. I'm going to leave, and see what kind of happens from that. I'm only here to have a bagel and have a cup of coffee. It's a 2-hour event. I'm going to commit 15 minutes to it, and I'll leave after that. And then you come back the next time. It's like, okay, 30 minutes. I'm going to have a second cup of coffee. I'm not encouraging extra cups of coffee and extra bagels, but I'm going to stay a little bit longer. And then kind of realize, okay, maybe it's not a horrible thing. Same thing with respect to connecting with others. Give a little trust. What I shared with this particular person I was, talking to or emailing with about the situation is, I have those problems too. I had somebody cancel on me today. It's annoying. It's totally annoying. I don't know what I don't know what the solution is. You're not going to be, and these are just networking calls, get acquainted calls. You're not going to take a deposit from somebody to have a networking call. I'm certainly not that important. I know people who are way more important than me, and they wouldn't think about doing that. It's just part of, it's just a cost of doing business, and not a financial cost of doing business, but it's a cost of doing business. Time, and you're going to encounter those things. I don't encounter them all the time. I tend to, especially in the Zoom world, in the virtual world, what I tend to do is just kind of move on from it, and it's easy to do when you're sitting at the office. You just, okay, I'm going to keep working. Um, but you just kind of wade into things, and reach out to somebody and just try and give somebody else a chance, and that's just kind of giving a little trust and seeing what comes back. The third thing they talk about in the article is just make plans for the future. Uh, you know, we don't live and die on networking events. We don't live and die on every networking contact that's out there. And a key feature of being successful is just being resilient. And when things don't work out, I've gone to networking events and they've been horrible. And I've gone to networking events and they've been amazing. And you just need to say, okay, no matter what happens with this call or this interaction, I'm going to move on. If it works out, great. I'm still going to move on. I still have to, nobody out there is that lottery ticket that's going to change your world. So even if the call goes well, you need to kind of plan for the future. And if the call goes bad, then you just need to be able to put it behind you quickly and move on. And so you kind of plan for the future. Okay, I'm going to go to this event, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm going back to the office and I'm going to do this other thing. Or it'll be Thursday night. I'm going to go watch the game, and just you don't wrap your whole world up in these little situations where it just doesn't have that kind of value. Um, the fourth one, I don't know that it really applies in this situation, but the fourth one is trust an animal. And Ellen Hendrickson talks about just the benefits of having a pet. And I don't know if most people, this resonates with people, but it kind of resonates with me. I've got a dog. Shout out to Josie. Shout out to Thumper, who's passed away. But it's neat having a dog. And I'll just speak to dogs because I've only ever had a dog. It's neat having a pet because I realize, and I do this, I'll sit here and think about, okay, I'm having kind of a bad day, and you know what, or I might have a bad day. This could go horribly sideways. And I always have to reflect back on the dog, because the dog really doesn't care. The dog just wants to be fed and sit by you and be loved and petted. They are unconditional. And so I find myself doing, I don't want to say horrible things, but taking risks that I might not otherwise take because of the dog. I know that sounds silly. I've got a wife, I've got kids, I love them too, they're great. I don't know that they're quite as unconditional as the dog, but just knowing that, okay, you know what, I got a dog. If all else fails, I got a dog, and that dog just thinks the world of me. I don't even have to shower, and it thinks the world of me. So, that was the fourth item. I thought that was really interesting as far as building trust. And I can see people, kind of, knowing that is, that's a secure base. I'm quoting from the article. The researchers concluded what millions of pet owners suspected, that an animal can provide both a safe haven and a secure base from which to engage with the world. And essentially that's what the animal does. Number 5, stop painting red flags green. And what she means by that, stop painting red flags green, is when you see a red flag, don't make excuses. Don't make excuses for, whatever. I'll give you an example. I was supposed to have a call today, and actually I was supposed to have a call later in the week. It was scheduled for 1 o'clock, and the person's like, hey, they originally said 1, and it's on my calendar. My calendar's pretty locked a week at a time. And they came back, so I need to change it. And, to me, that's a red flag, right? You need to change it. No reason, just kind of need to change it. Something came up, need to change it. And then they went ahead and they gave me pretty much every other possible hour during the day that we could reschedule to. And part of me is like, yeah, I could be flexible. I could be flexible and move something. I could move a couple things around and make this happen. But what they're really revealing to me, the red flag to me, is that whatever the conflict is, they could have had that conflict on something else. They could have moved it to another time, but somebody has come to them, and I don't know, but this is my sense of it. I'm not making excuses. I don't want to paint this red flag green, but they've just determined that I'm not as important, and that's fine. But I'm not going to jerry-rig my schedule because something else has come up for them, whatever it might be. And again, it could be totally innocent. To me, it's a red flag. I only have so much time. It was just kind of a get acquainted call. I was not going to just look beyond the red flag and be accommodating. If you want to reschedule at some point, then send me some options. But as far as this coming week, when we have something already scheduled, I'm not going to reschedule. I'm not going to do that with my day. I just sense a red flag here. So when we sense things about people or about situations, trust your gut. Because if you get burned, then you're going to chalk that up to, well, these things don't work. These things don't work. The last thing is that you need to grow the belief that you deserve to be around trustworthy people. You need to be surrounded with trust. Well, going to an event is trustworthy people. I find that most people at events are not the pushy people. There's one or two people there, and we taint that event with those one or two people that are like that. Everyone else is kind of chuckling about them, and some people just let it get to them. And anymore, I'm just pretty matter of fact. I'm polite with people, but I'll just say this is not the time nor the place to be conducting yourself the way you're conducting yourself. I don't really want to talk with you. That's as polite as I can be about it. I'm not interested in talking to you. I'm not interested in having your pitch. I want to meet somebody new. I want to have a mutual conversation, of just a friendly conversation with somebody. I don't know what you're selling. I don't care. And that's just me setting ground rules as to how I want to operate. And it's the same thing, just having a belief that I need to have great people in my life. And I'm going to find great people in my life. And I'm going to run across people who are going to stand me up and are going to do this. But by and large, if you stick with it long enough, most people, I'm not saying 99% of the people, but certainly 90% of the people are going to be good contacts, good people. And you just need to, understand that you're just playing a numbers game. You're just playing a numbers game, and I'm not saying maximize your nose or anything like that. Just be accepting of the fact that it's not always going to work out, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that people aren't trustworthy. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve trustworthy people, because you do. So just some thoughts on kind of building your resiliency, your trust in just the networking process, from an article I saw in Psychology Today. Just as a reminder to wrap up, we're looking for franchisees to add to our system. If you know of somebody who would like a franchise opportunity, they can add on to what they're already doing, something that will get them somewhat connected out there, and allow them to make money doing that. Have them contact me or email them, and just email me with the email we leave in the show notes, Frank Agin at AmSpirit.com. You'll hear that a couple times. It's in the show notes. It'll be said at the end of the podcast as well. I would certainly appreciate that. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today, and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.